The following presentation is brought to you by the Realm Network.
It's right about time again to swerve again, confuse the general fans again. Add another swerve and then...
Oh shit! It's Vince Russo!
Vince McMahon's best kept secret.
I am the Antichrist of professional wrestling!
David Arquette won the world title!
I've got a wife, 3 kids at home, and I really don't need this shit.
How can this show be so awful, Mr. McMahon? I didn't think it was.
Viagra on a pole match.
And Hogan, you big bald son of a bitch, kiss my ass!
Judy Bagwell on a forklift match. McMahon, the family, The Rock, they screwed us all.
Now, you're the editor, right?
Mankind did it! Jumpy, beat me! Goldberg steered Russo out of the cage.
I'm from New York.
I'll get downright nasty.
This is Vince Russo's The Brand.
again.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. I have a guest on today, and literally we just met and spoke for the first time 15 seconds ago. That's God honest, absolute truth. I've never met the man. I will say this, I am an absolute huge mark of the man, and not for only what he's done in his wrestling career. I'm talking about, just other little jobs that this individual had that we're going to talk about in detail. But I'm going to say this, as much as I'm going to sit here and put him over to nauseum, first and foremost, I've got a little bone to pick with this individual, and I don't want to start on the negative, but, there are some things I got to get off my chest, and it's where I'm going to start the interview with the one and only Mr. Kenny King. Kenny, how are you today?
Vince, I'm very, very thrilled, man. Very honored to be on the cast, man. So thanks for having me.
Well, see now, Kenny, listen. I think I'm getting the wrestlers working Vince routine because you're giving me. Listen, I'm honored to be here. I'm this and that. In the meantime, I thought it was a big coup that I was able to get Kenny King on the show. I think Kenny King is a huge star. I think it's a big coup. I think I got the big interview, almost like, whoever gets that first Caitlyn Jenner interview, Kenny, not that you're Caitlyn Jenner, but that's the magnitude of the interview, how I looked at it. Then, bro, I go online and you're doing interviews with this one and you're doing interviews. Bro, listen, before somebody goes on Oprah, do they go on the AM radio stations, bro, and do interviews? All
right, I'll own up to that one. What that actually came about was before I went to England, maybe about 2-3 weeks ago, I got hit up with, TNA had hit me with all this, a full day of media stuff, or you want to do this, Bleacher Report, and then, so I really just trying to condense all of the stuff that I didn't get a chance to do before I went to England into like one specific day. And I didn't really know that it was going to all come out. It was literally like a media blitz, like all these interviews, Scott Fishman's interview, all these interviews came out on the same day. So, and then when we kind of talked about doing the podcast, it was like, well, damn, people are going to get sick of Kenny King before the week is over. But this is the big one, Vince. This is the one I've been looking forward to.
Well, Kenny, unfortunately, all those other jabrones asked you the wrong questions, bro, because I got to be honest with you, Kenny. I saw the line of questioning and I said, you know what? I love this man and I'm a fan of this man, but I got to be totally honest with you. Your line of questioning is nothing that I'm interested in. So I feel sorry for them. They're going to get schooled now in podcasting because Kenny, they do. I got to set the guidelines up front. They do call me the Oprah of podcasting. Okay. And Kenny, I got to tell you this too. I got to be honest with you. I've had guests come on this show and cry. You think you're going to be able to get through this with me?
I'm almost positive that there won't be any tears, man, by the end of this.
All right, okay. Hey, bro, you said that. I didn't now.
Okay.
Now, Kenny, let me also clear the field here. Bro, you're an open book. Nothing we can't talk about, right?
Let's do it, man. This is why I wanted to do this one, because I know I wasn't going to have to be Mr. PR.
Now, Kenny, I feel I gotta have a sense of responsibility here. So, like, I kind of gotta know guidelines in my mind. Okay, first of all, Kenny, are you currently married?
No, I'm not currently married. I'm single.
Do you have a serious girlfriend?
No, I don't.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, so there's nothing you gotta hide from a missus or a girlfriend or nothing.
No, not anything. So we'll see where this goes.
All right, let's go, Kenny. First of all, I want to say, Kenny, you see under my name, it says wants to be Kenny King.
Okay.
Okay, I mean that, Kenny. I mean, and I'm going to tell you why, Kenny. When I watch you with TNA, and Kenny, I don't know if you know this or not, but let me just start by saying, when you made your return back to TNA, I was consulting with them at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was a huge fan of yours. I was working a little bit behind the scenes. You didn't know it, but when you came back, I was working behind the scenes. Now, seeing you, with my own eyes, seeing you and reading your bio and reading up on you. See, Kenny, I do my research when I do these interviews. I'm Oprah. I want to be you, Kenny, and I'll tell you why, and you tell me if I'm wrong. When I look at a Kenny King and I read this Kenny King bio, immediately, bro, I'm hit over the head with you're one of these guys, bro, that can absolutely achieve anything your heart desires, anything you want to achieve, anything you want to do, you do it. That's the impression I get about you. Am I close?
No, that's pretty much how it goes, man. And I do like how this turned into the Vince Russo motivational speaker hour. I dig that 100%. But it's just something that it was the way that I was raised, and it was the way that my parents kind of brought me up. Like, if the only limitation that you have are you, and you can't let everybody's always going to tell you what you can and can't do, and everybody's always going to try to set limitations for you. And in a lot of ways, man, you should use those as stepping stools, and you should use those as motivation. So I don't really see any goals I achieve for myself. If it doesn't happen right away, I'm always trying to make steps to achieve it.
Okay, Kenny, growing up, where did you grow up, Kenny?
I grew up in Florida. I was born in New York, and then I grew up in Orlando, Florida. My parents moved down when I was younger.
And what did they do for a living?
My parents are in sales, so my parents were in timeshare sales. So great selling runs in the family.
Yeah. Now let me ask you this, Kenny. Was your first? I'm assuming this just by looking at you, bro. And I'll tell you why, Kenny. And I'm reading about your football background. To me, you just reek like athlete. You reek thoroughbred. You reek blue chipper. When I see you, I see what was the movie with Tom Cruise, Jerry Maguire? Show me the money. That's what I see. I see like a blue chipper. Am I right there? Were you influenced with sports growing up?
Oh man, I was. It was football. I mean, I played just about anything that I can get my hands on. I played golf. I played football, basketball, baseball. I've always been an athlete. I've always been competitive. I always like to kind of prove myself up against the next person. So it was the natural transition into wrestling from football was, it was very, very, very natural for me. So I've always been about, being a top athlete.
So Kenny, was your natural sport though? Because I know you went to Florida State, for football, and then you went to a UNLV. What was that your sport of choice growing up? Because I saw that you were a safety, which made a lot of sense to me because you're not a big guy. So like I wouldn't think maybe wrestling, maybe football wasn't the number one love, but was football always it for you?
Yeah, football was always it. I can actually remember the day that I first started playing football. My dad and I were driving by the YMCA, and my cousin was a big time blue chip athlete. He went to Virginia Tech to play football. So it was, I'll never forget. He was like, "Hey, do you want to play football?" And I was probably like 9 or 10 at the time, and I'll never forget strapping on pads and that first practice where you got to do some contact. So I was in love with it from then on out. And I played, I really, up until the point where, up until literally, I think, tough enough, I was pretty much determined to be a professional football player.
Kenny, you want to hear what a wuss I am? I'll tell you what a wuss I am, Kenny. I grew up in an Italian family with an Italian mother and father. Kenny, this is the kind of wuss I am. This is why I got to live vicariously through you. Kenny, I had to play soccer in high school because my mother wouldn't let me play football because she was afraid I'd get hurt. Can you ever hear of any such a thing?
Well, I tell you what, now I'm actually now a big soccer fan. So I give those dudes a lot of respect and a lot of, it's high-speed collisions. It's feet out, cleats out. Like those dudes, they don't get a lot of respect for how tough they really are, being able to run and having to run and be explosive for 90 minutes and the physicality that's included in owning the ball or making a tackle. So, those soccer dudes in high school and college, I would have called you a punk. But now I definitely have a lot more respect for soccer players.
Hey, Kenny, I'm just curious because you like I said, you reek athlete. So did baseball and basketball come into play?
A little bit, as I was kind of trying to, I guess, maybe find myself, and my parents had me put me in a lot of different other things growing up. But I think I narrowed it down to football exclusively. Like once I got to high school. I played football in Florida, and in Florida, high school football is a big deal, like Texas or like California. So it was in high school where I just kind of decided to put like basketball away. I mean, I'm not 6'4", 6'5", so I'm not going to be dunking on a whole bunch of people, and baseball just really wasn't my speed. I like contact, I like physicality. So football was everything, really everything for me for the longest time.
Now, Kenny, I have to ask you this again. I'm looking at you and I'm thinking, did you start what were you, maybe about 5 or 6 when you started developing a six-pack?
You know what? It really wasn't that. It kind of didn't come until I really started working out. Like I said, the whole Florida's a football factory. So the minute you enter 9th grade and you decide, hey, listen, I want to be a football player, you're swept in the system, and you walk into class with weights in your hand. You got a regimen. So I didn't really start training my body and really seeing my body kind of come into focus until I got into high school, and it wasn't an option. You had to work out. So
you're probably saying 15, 16.
Yeah, 15, 16 is when I started developing.
Now, Kenny, I got to ask you to do this. This may be a little awkward, and I doubt that anybody has asked you to do this before. I would not ask you to do anything without reason, Kenny. Can you please give me a big smile?
Okay.
Okay, now that we've established the smile, what I'm trying to establish is this, Kenny. Good-looking man. The beautiful pearly whites you got. With that smile, I'm here. I got my shades drawn in my office. You just lit up this whole room.
Thank you, Vince.
Okay, now Kenny, listen, I'm gonna be candid here, and thank God, you're not married. I know you have a little daughter, right, Kenny?
Yes, I do.
And what's her name?
Mackenzie.
And how old is Mackenzie?
8.
Okay, and she's not in the room, right?
No. That's cool.
Okay, great. Okay, so now that I know Kenny doesn't have a wife or a girlfriend, just Mackenzie, and she's locked away in another room, now I can start going through the line of questioning. Okay. Where Kenny, I've got to live vicariously through you.
Okay, shoot, let's do it.
Okay, now Kenny, I'm thinking, listen, bro. 15. First of all, I don't buy the 15, 16. I think you had a six-pack when you were 5 or 6. But I'll get maybe you're being a little modest, Kenny, and that's cool. But Kenny, now you're 15 and 16. Now you're developing this athlete physique. Now, bro, you're playing football in high school. What position were you playing in high school, Kenny?
High school, I played running back. I played linebacker. Really toward the end of my high school career, I was playing more like linebacker, strong safety.
Yeah, but playing running back too. I mean, basically, you just told me that you're pretty much the star of the team. Yeah, let's be honest.
For a little while, yeah.
All right, so you're the star of the team, Kenny. You got the six-pack abs. You got the pearly whites. You're about 15, 16 years old. So I have to start thinking at this time the girls are starting to come out of the woodwork.
Somewhat, yeah.
What, Nick? Don't give me so. What's somewhat, bro? What are you shy now, Kenny? You're gonna get shy on me, Kenny.
Listen, I know from the questions where the questions are going. We're gonna establish that I'm not shy. So
okay. Well, wait, what's somewhat, Kenny? You're the running back of the team. You look like a movie star, and you got washboard abs. What's somewhat, bro?
It didn't come through high school. Like I had girlfriends here and there, but I didn't fully get a whole lot of confidence with women until after high school, getting into college and kind of really broaden my horizons. Like it was there, you know what I mean? But I didn't really have full out confidence. I'm still trying to find myself and so high school wasn't a big, revolving door for women for me. It was still trying to figure out like, okay, what kind of girls do I like? What kind of girls like me? How does this even go? Still trying to sharpen my game. So
I got to tell you, Kenny, that's very, very surprising to me, and I want to dive into this a little bit. How could you not be oozing confidence? With everything that was going your way, that surprises me a little bit. What was the lack of confidence?
I don't know. It's funny. This is the first time that I've ever been asked that question. I guess maybe. I don't know. Maybe it was just being a teenager, not really trying to get in where I fit in. I went to a very big high school. Was at that time the second biggest high school in Florida. It was like 4,000 kids there. So it was a microcosm for, okay, there's this group of people, there's this group of people. I was fitting with the athletes, and I was also I was in drama, like I was in a lot of the shows. So it was literally just trying to, while I have these talents and I have this ability to do this and this, it was all of those things and not really being able to say the right thing to the right girl, and still trying to, like I said, sharpen the game, because there was a lot of swings and misses,
Well, so Kenny, you were, while you're playing football, running back, linebacker, bro, you're also involved in drama.
Yeah.
So Kenny, at this point in your life, I mean, you're an athlete, you're doing drama. What was your ambition? What was your goal at this point in high school?
I wanted to. That's when I really started narrowing. I wanted to be a football player first, then a movie star second. I wanted to make. It was a very clear transition the way I wanted to do. I wanted to play in the NFL for a number of years. Realistically, that's I think when I first started learning about like how pensions worked. So I knew that I didn't want to maybe be a lifelong NFL player, but I knew that I wanted to play, make a name for myself, and be set up forever while I made a transition, into acting.
Wow. Okay. See, I did not know about that acting part of it, which of course makes sense to me, because when I first saw you, I mean, you were a natural. So I get it now. Now it makes a lot more sense. Okay. So Kenny, so now you go on to college to play football. Was it Florida State?
No, well, it's University of South Florida. It's USF.
Okay, USF, and that's where you went to play football. Now you're playing safety in football, correct?
Yeah.
Did you go there on scholarship, Kenny?
No, I didn't. The couple places that I wanted to go on scholarship, or that wanted me to go on scholarship, I didn't. I just didn't go, and I felt like I wanted to play. You know what I mean? I didn't want to sit online behind a whole bunch of dudes and not be able to play. Like I wanted to play. So like some of the big time schools, it didn't make a whole lot of sense. And at the time, USF was going from D2 to like 1AA, and then trying to transition from 1AA to like straight up D1. So it was they made that transition. USF's program started in 1997. I got there in 1999. And from 1999 to 2003-ish, they went from 1AA to conference, or the I can't remember what the conference is, but a smaller Division I conference to Sun Belt Conference to Conference USA. So there was a lot of shuffling, a lot of restructuring going on with South Florida, and it just seemed like the right place to be, like getting on the ground floor into a budding. And it is right now. It's getting to be a major D1 program in the state of Florida.
Now, Kenny, you, like I said, your physique, and this is years ago. We're talking high school and college now. You're an adult now, but I mean, you were not a big guy. By big guy, I mean, you were lean and mean. I mean, that's the kind of physique and body you had. Now, Kenny, once you got to the collegiate game, was it now a totally different world for you as compared to, playing high school football?
Everything on the levels that you step up, I think the thing that most people realize is the speed of the game. Everybody steps up because everybody's as good as you are. You in high school, you just went to the high school, and if you could get the grades and you could put on some pads, then you could play. But college, this is a business. It's everybody's not there. Some dudes are getting paid to be there. Some dudes are fighting. Like me, I walked on determined to really make it happen. So now everybody's on the same level, and everybody's on that level or above. And the speed, just how fast plays develop, and how fast you have to be able to read keys, and you have to be able to use intuition and find yourself and be in a place where you're supposed to be there, but you have to be there before you're supposed to be there. That kind of thing. That's the biggest noticeable difference between the game. And then my friends that play in the NFL say the difference between high school to college and then college to NFL is that much bigger in speed. So it's just the game. The athletes get better. The schemes get more impressive. You got coaches. You got $1 million coaches. So it's a business. These guys, everybody knows what they're doing.
Kenny, now, were you still pursuing acting in college?
Yeah, I went. I was actually a performance major in college, and that's like one of the most difficult, I think, things to do is still try to be an actor and pursue a theater degree, and still have to put in time with I still had play practices and rehearsals and all the things that you have to do for that. Like you still have to go and design lighting grids and do costuming, like all this extracurricular stuff, and then still be there for practice, and then still be there for workouts. And so it was a lot of times where it was either a coach telling me, "Oh man, wait, are you here to play football, or are you the actor?" When I say, "Hey, listen, I've got rehearsal from 4 to 6. Well, what the hell's I got to do with football practice? Or for conversely, if I have a director say, "Listen, I've got to work out. I can't make this rehearsal." Well, you don't want to be in this play, do you? Because so it's not that they work together in any way, shape, or form. It's a competition, and if you want to devote your attention to one, then the other one is looking at it negatively, and vice versa. So that was very, very difficult.
Hey, Kenny, I got to ask you this. Aside from, the athleticism, aside from the acting chops, I also listening to you talk, and not only here today, but hearing you many times at TNA, there's no question in my mind, you're also a highly educated individual. Now, Kenny, you were chasing two dreams where, let's face it, Kenny, the odds are stacked, against you, making it in the NFL, becoming a successful or even a working actor.
Right.
We're talking about 1,000,000 to 1, bro. This ain't okay. I'm gonna go be a teacher. I'm gonna go work in finance. We're talking about both careers, 1,000,000 to 1 shot. Was there ever, and you're intelligent now, and I'm sure you knew that going in. Was there ever, Kenny, was there a plan C? Was there maybe something you were minoring in case you were forced to fall back on it?
Well, what I wanted to do, I've always, like I said, I come from a sales family. So I've always been interested in advertising and marketing and being able to figure out new ways to sell things to people. So I always kind of said to myself, if I saw that none of the things were going the way that I wanted it to go, then marketing and business marketing would be what I really wanted to fall back on.
Okay, so Kenny, now I know you transferred to University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and you moved to Vegas, but now you redshirted there and never got a chance to play football there. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, my transcripts didn't come in, and I didn't get an opportunity to come in because I left that summer. So it was summer 2001. So I didn't get my transcripts in because I was going to go straight ahead and try to walk on and literally make the team for the season. Because, I mean, at that time, like, UNLV wasn't very good. And, how it even happened, my dad, my parents moved out to Vegas, and my dad was telling me, I'm not really happy at USF and some of the way, the politics involved in making a program go from obscurity to national prominence. There's a whole lot of politics involved. So at the time, John Robinson was a legendary coach, was the head coach of UNLV. And, I talked to my dad about how I was feeling about it. And my dad went over to UNLV. He handed the defensive coordinator was a guy named Mike Bradison at the time, handed my tape to Coach Brad. And really, I got a phone call from Coach Brad like, hey, do you think you want to come out and play for us? So that's kind of how that whole thing happened. And I made my decision that I was going to leave. And then it was kind of a deal where it just didn't work out for me to be able to play that season, or that fall season. So that's how, oddly enough, I'm just kind of waiting my turn, waiting to be able, to finish the first semester so I can go out for spring so I can continue my deal. And that's, I was walking in my first class and I opened up the student newspaper, and that was the big page ad. Are you tough enough? Do you think that you can wrestle? And that's literally how it started.
Okay, so Kenny, you see this Tough Enough there now. So like, but Kenny, you've been playing football since you're a kid. Are you telling me now you see this Tough Enough ad and that's it? That's it with football? This is what I'm going to exceed in next?
Well, what happened was I saw the first Tough Enough. I watched it, and my competitive spirit is looking at these guys. And I've been a wrestling fan lifelong at this point. Like my very first wrestling match that I can ever remember watching, and a match that I remember saying, wow, I really dig this, was Demolition versus Strike Force. I think it was WrestleMania 4, maybe 5. But I remember watching that, and then I've been hooked. I mean, I watched so much of your stuff in WCW. Like I was really at that point a huge wrestling fan. But at that point, wrestling is kind of like, how do you become an astronaut? There wasn't the internet where I could go online and find a wrestling school or learn about how to train. It was just kind of like, well, somehow those guys got into it. I remember seeing about the power plant in Georgia and whatnot, but I wasn't going to move to Georgia to go join the power plant. So it was just kind of one of those things where I like it, but I never got the opportunity to. And then watching Tough Enough and seeing those people like not being able to even jump rope, like, oh man, these guys aren't even athletes. Like, how the hell do they expect to even be wrestlers and they're not even athletes? So it was just a weird turn of events where I wasn't doing anything. I went to play football. I didn't have an outlet. And now here's Tough Enough. I mean, I liked it, and it was such a long shot in my head. I sent my tape in like deadline of the day, the last day that you could, the next day aired it, and just kind of was like, there's that. And then I get a phone call that completely changed my life,
Okay, so this, and Kenny, listen, I don't mean to be rude, but I'm trying not to go down the wrestling road for a couple of reasons. First of all, you've gone through it a million times before. Second of all, there are so many other fascinating things in your life that I want to talk about, honestly. But so now you make the decision, Tough Enough, I'm going to be a professional wrestler. You got to the Final Four, right, Kenny?
Yes.
And Kenny, I was reading this today. Kenny, I never really watched Tough Enough, I'll be honest with you. So I was reading up today, and I'm reading, I guess, a Jackie Gator won which I mean, bro, listen, Kenny, nothing against Jackie Gator, but I mean, we got Kenny King here. I don't know what to say. Hey, Kenny, can I ask you a real serious question now? And this ain't funny. This is really serious. We're going to get to funny in a minute because we're going to talk about your other career, which I can't wait to talk about because I think I may have a future as a Chippendale dancer. I'm 54. There's a couple things about the other. Kenny, I want to ask you this question, okay? And this is a little serious. And Kenny, like these are the taboo subjects like nobody's allowed to talk about. I think you're going to be cool with it, Kenny, because like I said, you're a very intelligent guy. I don't have to know you to know that. I can sense that. Okay. Kenny, I got to ask you one thing. I got to ask you a question, bro. Because it had a big, it had a big impact on my life, and it kind of hurt me. It kind of hurt me tremendously. Okay, Kenny, I got to be honest with you. I grew up in New York. Where were you? Where were you born in New York, Kenny? Queens. Kenny, I got to tell you something, and this may sound untrue. This is the God honest truth, Kenny. I grew up in New York. I never, Kenny, like in my life, high school, college, I grew up in New York. I was there in New York till I went to work for the WWE when I was like, in my 30s. So I spent my entire life in New York on Long Island. Kenny, there was like never such a thing, honestly, in my walk of life, like racism did not exist. I mean, it just, I don't know what it was like about New Yorkers, but you know how, bro, they call New York the melting pot? And there was so many different people from so many different walks of life that it was never an issue in my life. I mean, never. Kenny, I got to tell you something, bro, and I'm going to explain the story to you because I want to get your take because you're an African-American athlete in professional wrestling.
Right.
Kenny, I moved to Atlanta for WCW in 1999. Okay. Kenny, when WCW ended, I opened up. First of all, there was one issue with WCW that like really hurt me personally. And I'll tell you what that issue was. Supposedly at the power plant, you mentioned it earlier, the WCW power plant, there was some minorities at the power plant. And I'm not just talking about African Americans. I think Sonny Ono was a part of this lawsuit. So it wasn't just African Americans, but there was this big lawsuit going on about the way some of these African American athletes were treated down at the power plant. And, these African Americans, they filed, racist claims against WCW. There was a lawsuit and there were all this involved. Okay. Kenny, at around the same time, bro, first of all, understand this. I have no idea what's going on with that. That's not my business. You can understand that. I mean, as a creative writer, I don't know what's going on at the power plant. That's not my business and that's not my job, But Kenny, at the same time now, I'm in a creative meeting. And Kenny, there were about 8 of us in this meeting. This is at WCW now, probably around 2000, right? And Kenny, I opened up the meeting and I said to everybody in the meeting, and Kenny, let me say this too, bro. There was not one black person in the meeting. There were 8 white guys in the meeting, okay? Right. And I said, guys,
right for wrestling.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, all right. But this is why I want to have this conversation with you. I said, guys, if there is one guy you could put the belt on tomorrow, who would it be? Kenny, I went around the room. Every single person said Booker T. Now you got to remember, Kenny, at the time, that Booker T wasn't today's Booker T, who's a huge star. This was Booker T, one half of the Harlem Heat. That was just
what we're watching. Like Harlem Heat was okay. So just not to cut you off, but if for a young black kid watching Harlem Heat, man, that's like the new incarnation of Doom. I remember watching Doom, like, oh my God, these dudes are the baddest dudes on the planet. And then Harlem Heat. I remember when Booker was younger and he used to do the Harlem Hangover, doing the front flip moonsault. Like that's for a young black kid watching wrestling. You either had to like Kamala or you had to like Coco Beware. But nobody was winning any matches. You know what I mean? So I remember I had a tweet maybe a year ago just talking about how man, as a young black kid watching wrestling, Coco Beware, you had to wear your heart on your sleeve a little bit watching Coco because Coco come out with Frankie but you know what was gonna happen. Now so Booker and Stevie Ray were huge stars for me.
Yeah, but in the scope of the business, and especially, bro, the politics at WCW, they were not, But Kenny, around that room, everybody, Booker T, I sat there and I said, okay, then why isn't Booker T winning the title on Sunday at Bash at the Beach? It was that simple. So based on what everybody said, I said, okay, we're putting the title on Booker T. End of story, you know? So again, Kenny, now I was so proud of Booker because I knew him and I knew he freaking earned and deserved everything that came his way. But of course, bro, the thing that broke my heart, and not only broke my heart, it hurt me for Booker more than anybody. Of course, they start running with the story that WCW management told us to put the belt on a black man because of the lawsuit. And Kenny, the thing that made me so hot was that took away from Booker's credibility. That took away from what Booker earned, from what Booker deserved. That story was so far from the truth. It never took place. And I hated it for Booker. Okay. But Kenny, this is what I wanted to ask you now that I've laid out that backstory. Now, Kenny, maybe I'm naive or maybe I'm not, but I got to tell you something. First and foremost, Kenny, in professional wrestling, working for 3 different companies, the thing I saw first and foremost, and it wasn't even hidden to anybody, was sexism towards women.
Yeah.
No doubt about it, Kenny. And I'll say it right now. The WWE was worse than anybody. And TNA, you know, especially now under Gaboric and Dixie's, it was the least. The WWE was a huge problem with that. And Kenny, it made me sick. You know, the girls were second-class citizens. They were treated that way. The guys disrespected them. And I really had an issue with this big time and still do to this day. Okay. Right. But Kenny, the thing I have to be honest about is, what I was telling you, Kenny, about when I moved to Atlanta and I told you I owned a business, right?
Yep.
Kenny, I was in a town in Atlanta where half of my clientele were black. The other half were, I hate to use this term, Kenny, but I have to, they were rednecks. We were in Atlanta.
It's Atlanta. If you've been, you know that's pretty much the demographic.
Yeah, and Kenny, I got to tell you, I was the owner of my store. I was in the store every day, half of my clientele black, the other half rednecks. Kenny, I got to be honest with you. I never thought racism still... I never thought, number one, it existed on that level, and number two, especially in the year 2000 at that time.
Okay.
Yeah, I could not believe the things I was hearing. And Kenny, I'm going to tell you this, and I say this all the time, and I don't care if I get heat for this. I don't care if people don't like it. I don't care. Kenny, I got to be honest with you. When I talk about the racism, it never came from the black side. It came from the white side 100% of the time. And me, like, coming from New York and not dealing with that, I'm like, I can't believe that this freaking exists. That's how naive I was. But Kenny, I have to say this, and I want to get your take on this. And the reason I bring it up is, bro, Gator wins Tough Enough. I mean, that's why I'm bringing this up, Kenny. No, nothing against her, but Kenny, one thing I got to say that I think I'm proud of, one of the things I'm proud of the wrestling business was I was never in a situation, Kenny, where anybody, and this goes for the WWE, TNA, WCW, where anybody was held down because they were a minority. Never. I was never in that situation. When I suggested we put the title on Booker, nobody in management ever had a problem. Obviously I was there with the legend, Ron Simmons, and like, bro, Ron was a god. And treated like a god. And I was never like in an instant in a situation where, racism came into play in professional wrestling. Now, Kenny, I'll read things about it. And I always say, I got to be honest with you. The girls, yes, but black athletes, that was never like, Kenny, a guy that was a lot like you, that I was a huge fan, like Skipper.
Skip, yeah.
Yeah, I was a huge fan of Felix, and it was like never an issue. Kenny, am I being naive? Did I maybe only see things the way I wanted to see them? Or do you feel like you've dealt with that at any time? And I'm asking you this, Kenny, because you're an educated guy. I mean, when it's there, I'm sure you see it. Have you felt that you've ever had to deal with this in professional wrestling?
Well, I kind of feel like it's a matter of perspective. You know, Vince, you grew up in Long Island. You're Italian Vince Russo. You have your own experiences. You grew up, so you see the world the way that your experiences have laid them out. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I don't take that as being naive. I can't fault you for never maybe even if it was there and you didn't see it. It's not your fault if it's not something that you absolutely recognize. Me personally, I don't know that there's been one specific instance where I ever felt like, oh well, racism in this business and da. But I will say that I've had numerous conversations with. I mean, I've been very blessed to be able to talk with a lot of the greats. I've talked with Devon Dudley. I've talked with D'Lo Brown. I've had conversation, small conversations with Ron. Ron Killings. Just guys that have been around, MVP guys that have just been around, and where they'll say it's never been so overt, but maybe underlying and under the surface. For me personally, I kind of going on Tough Enough. I don't think Tough Enough had anything to do with racism at all, because Jackie Yeda won, and sort of Linda Miles. I don't know if you remember Linda Miles. She was a tall black girl.
Yeah.
If anything, that had Tough Enough 2 was decided more on sexism than anything else. And conversation that I had with Kevin Dunn after the finale in New York, and clearly I was very, very dejected and not really understanding what happened. And I guess he saw me literally line them up at the bar, about to just kind of, before I started my celebration or my victory party, whatever. But he pulled me aside and was like, "Listen, don't tell anybody this, but you were one of the best guys that everybody knew. But guess what? We're going a different direction, and you don't look so good in the bikini." So before, and if you look at literally from that point on, how the diva explosion and like the sex sells aspect of the WWE really kicked in after that, and the diva search was very much after that. And they really started forming a divas division kind of in the wake of all that. So that to me made it easier to swallow than you just weren't good enough or even whatever conceived notion of racism. It wasn't there for the executive, for Vince's right hand man to say, "Hey, look, you don't have tits and ass. Sorry." That put it in perspective for me. So
that I apply. Listen. First of all, I'm a huge Kevin Dunn fan. I've always been a huge Kevin. There would not be a WWE if it wasn't for Kevin Dunn. People don't know that. That's the truth. Yeah. I applaud him huge for telling you that. But Kenny, I think a lot of times, and I'm just going by my experiences, in the wrestling business, and tell me if I'm wrong. I think a lot of times, bro, where the racism starts is, bro, it seems like it's always the opinion of, one individual. Kenny, it's like all it takes is the one. It's not like this conspiracy theory and there's this whole level of management that feels this way. It's like it's always the one guy, and then that spins out into, oh gosh, there's racism in wrestling or whatever you want to say. Is that accurate, Kenny, or no?
Well, here's where I'd say it's accurate, Vince. I'd say it's accurate when you have so many. I mean, this goes without saying, but you have so many different types of ethnic people, of blacks and Spanish people and Asians, and you only seem to get 4 or 5 portrayals of what black characters do, or what Asian characters do, or Spanish characters do, whereas the white wrestlers get all sorts of backstory and different motivations for things and fleshed out characters versus, I want to be a wrestler, so I got to be a gangster, or I got to be a rapper, or I got to be, or I got to clap and be happy and be churchy, or so if I don't want to be one of those 4 things, maybe I don't have a spot in a certain organization. If I'm not a karate master, if I'm Asian and I don't spit green or mist, then maybe I don't have a shot. So that's where maybe the narrow-minded portrayals, and that's where it comes from 1 or 2 people that don't have the experience with a whole group or a whole other side of that ethnic group, blacks or Spanish people. So they could say, well, damn, there are black lawyers and there are black doctors and there are Spanish astronauts. So there can be other accurate portrayals of what minorities are, other than the 4 or 5 that we constantly see.
Kenny, that is an absolutely great point, bro. I mean, I never really looked at it that way, and that is a great point. And Kenny, listen, I'll be totally honest with you, and this is a flaw in the business. I'll tell you this, right? And I may be wrong about this, but I don't think I am. Kenny, the writers, we create the characters. We write for the characters. That's what we do. Kenny, of course, I can write a lot easier for a white man than I can a black man, than I can a woman, because I'm not a black man or I'm not a woman. So I'm not on the same mental level. Of course, if it's a white guy, that's who I am. Right. And, that's why that is an excellent point that you bring up there before, that I never looked at that way. But Kenny, has there ever been a black writer? I know there's never been a female one. I know I give John and TNA credit because Christy was on the creative team before she gave her notes. But, I got to be honest with you. I was there, Kenny, with Christy, and she was involved, but she wasn't really the writer. Right. You know what I'm saying? So, there's been no blacks, there's been no Hispanics, there's been no Oriental, there's been no women.
Yeah.
And that could be a big problem in today's industry.
Well, I'll say this, and I've said this in different interviews. I'm very happy to be TNA for a lot of reasons, but one specific reason. The communication between the creative and talent is it's better than from anywhere that I've ever been. If I get a sheet that says, we'd like you to say this, or we'd like this is how what we'd like to get across, and it comes written in a manner that and sometimes it does, I look at it and be like, well, who the hell thinks that I would say this? But we have such a rapport where I could say, well, listen, I understand this is kind of where you're trying to get, but let me say it the way that a young black guy would say it. So that if my audience or the guys that I'm trying to reach are young black guys, so I'm not alienating people, they're like, well, what the hell is he talking about? So one of the things that I really, really enjoyed was when they formed the whole thing with myself, Bobby Lashley, and MVP. The buzz around it was, they're trying to form a new nation and we need a new nation domination. And what I absolutely loved about that clique that we formed was not once anywhere ever did we ever mention the fact that we were 3 black men and we're 3 phenomenal athletes and we just happened to be black. And it never took the tone of, well, the 3 black guys are gonna take over. It was 3 guys. One of them is a megalomaniac in MVP. The other one is a silent killer in Bobby Lashley. And the other one's the loose cannon in Kenny King. And you can interchange those 3 characters with any white guys, with any Spanish guys. And that's why it worked out so well, because there was no stereotypes. It wasn't we're not trying, okay, well, we're going to try to bump up our black viewership, so let's go ethnic for a term. It was just, hey man, you guys go out there and you be you and your characters, and that's what we're going to rock with it. And I was very, very thankful that we didn't have any corny.
Yeah. Well, Kenny, you got to also understand. Listen, you got to give credit where credit is due. Yes, of course, I'd give credit to the TNA writers and John and all that, but you got to give credit where credit is due too, Kenny. Kenny, you're talking about three highly intelligent individuals in you, Bobby, and MVP. I mean, first of all, I've only worked with Bobby. I've not worked with you. I've not worked with MVP. But listen. I watched the show. I know. I've been around the block a couple of times. You got three highly educated individuals, and this is what I tell everybody in wrestling all the time when it comes to the talent versus creative, bro. It's all a matter of presentation. It's all a matter of how Kenny King presents his case, and unfortunately, Kenny, that a lot of wrestlers don't know how to do that. And they come across really bad, and at that point, the mindset of the ride is going to be screw you.
Right. I mean,
yeah.
It's you only get a chance in wrestling. You get a small chance to shine, because there's 40 dudes on the roster. Everybody's clawing for a spot. So if you're lucky enough to be featured, you don't have. That's why I tell my students, you don't have 2-3 opportunities, even though they may have 2-3 weeks of TV written for you. You may only have the one opportunity for them to decide, well, we really want to go forward with that, because it ain't nothing to get your ass yanked off of a card or get your segment cut out or well, we need, instead of 10 minutes for your segment, now you only got 4. So you have to learn instantly how to make yourself or whatever it is that you're trying to get over appealing to not only just the fans, but to creative, because creative has to want to make this work.
Kenny, you know what I used to try to tell the boys, and Kenny, very few of them got it, but you'll understand this fully. And if you have students, I'm sure you'll tell the students the whole thing. Listen, you guys, the way the wrestling business is set up, you guys are independent contractors. Mm-hmm. And Kenny, wrestling, you're in the business, bro. You could be here tomorrow and gone the next day. That's wrestling, right? Right, Kenny?
Yeah.
So, Kenny, what I used to tell these guys, like, if they didn't like something, what I used to try to understand to them, what I used to try to explain to them is, listen, you are an independent contractor in the wrestling business. Your job is always going to be, I have to find work. That's always going to be your job. Now, we are giving you 2 minutes on national television in front of millions of people. Forget TNA. Forget that you don't like the script. Forget you don't like. This is your 2 minutes to sell your brand, because you may not be working for TNA in 6 months. You might not be working for WWE in a year. You'll be working for Kenny King. So every time you have the opportunity to promote your brand in front of an audience, buddy, you got to make chicken salad out of chicken, you know what? Because that's how you make you.
How much money is 2 minutes on national television actually worth?
Exactly. No money that we wouldn't be able to afford.
Right. So if someone is giving you that amount of money in front of that kind of audience to get something over, it doesn't matter if you hate it. Get it over. I tell my students, there's a story about a guy, and he knows. So there's a guy when I worked at Ring of Honor by the name of Alex Payne, and he was from Chicago, and he wanted to, and for some reason I can't remember how, but he got the name Sugarfoot. He's a skinnier dude, kind of wiry, had these curly blonde locks, and honestly would be the definition of generic babyface number 18. And so that gives you a good idea what I'm talking about. But for whatever reason, in Chicago, Cleveland, some of the places where we'd loop at Ring of Honor, he got the name Sugarfoot. And it was over. He'd come out, he'd do pre-show matches, and he'd got Sugarfoot. He wasn't getting the spots that maybe he wanted, but the spots that he did get, he was getting over. So I remember myself and Austin Aries were sitting back and we're talking to him. And Aries had this great idea, and we were just talking about, like, why don't you go? You need to come out and use the Sugarfoot thing. Come out with a golden boot. Come out stamping that golden boot. Hit a dude with a big boot, a super kick or something. And, when it's time for you to go home, Here comes the Sugarfoot, and you're over like Rover. But the problem with Sugarfoot is he wanted to be Bryan Danielson.
Yeah.
He wanted to be super serious, Mr. Wrestling. I can put you in a 45 submissions and then do fire and fighting spirit and not sell. And look, bro, here's one Bryan Danielson. and Bryan Danielson had a hard time being Bryan Danielson until he showed everybody what Bryan Danielson could really do.
Kenny, you want to know something funny? And Kenny, you know I've worked for 3 companies, thousands of wrestlers, thousands. Kenny, the number one thing that prevents guys from ever getting over is them taking themselves too seriously, bro. And bro, you know what the thing is, Kenny? Here's the thing. My writing position, I would tell them that. I would tell them that straight up, right to your. This is not make believe. This is entertainment. You know, you're taking yourself and the business way too seriously. That's what prevented them from getting over.
I mean, that's such a clear-cut case. If especially I would say, you know, if I'm wrestling on the indies or whatever, and if I go between heel or face, I would say it doesn't matter whether I'm on TV or not. This is your territory. So let's not swim upstream. If you're the biggest babyface in Oklahoma City, then I'm not coming in, regardless whether I'm on TV or not, to come be a babyface in your town. You know, regardless of whether I want to sell merch or sell gimmicks or not, let's not swim upstream. If you're getting cheers and chants, and it's the hardest thing as a professional wrestler to do is to get people to care about what you're doing if you're not being pushed as a main guy. If you get that kind of reaction, and whatever it is that's getting you there, stay there until you can figure out how to turn Sugarfoot into Bryan Danielson. But damn it, if you're getting over a Sugarfoot and that's what's getting you bookings and that's what's getting you spots on shows, what are you swimming upstream for? What are you taking that part of what's making you over and want to throw it away? Taking yourself too seriously, wanting to be a serious wrestler if you're not. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Kenny, while we're on this subject, and see, Kenny, I don't have notes. We talk with two buddies talking, and based on what you say, it takes me down another road. I want to open this up to you now, Kenny, because I want to see how you feel about this, because I'll tell you what, I consider you a great entertainer, and I also consider you a great wrestler, and you've worked at Ring of Honor, okay? Now, Kenny, here's what I want to propose to you, because, listen, if somebody can come along and school me on this and make me see something differently, I'm open to it. The portrayal of minorities, that the way you just laid it out, you open my eyes to it. Yeah, man, that's dead on. I never looked at it from that perspective before. But Kenny, listen, I grew up on wrestling. I grew up on the entertainment aspect because I grew up on Vince's father, the WWF. It was all entertainment. Right. So that's what I grew up on. Okay, that's what I knew. In all the research I've done, going back to the early days of wrestling was invented or evolved as a form of entertainment. Usually they would have wrestling matches at carnivals to entertain. Every time you read about the origins of wrestling, Kenny, you'll read about entertainment. Yeah. The two words go hand in hand, okay? We are now becoming more and more and more and more in an age, especially with the internet. They've created this, the internet wrestling community, where we're rating fake wrestling matches. And they want wrestling, anything entertainment. The smaller minority with the loudest voice, they rip. Okay. Yeah. Now, Kenny, a couple of things I want to present to you, because like I said, if somebody can change my mind on this, I'm cool. I'm not right all the time, but I look a couple of things, Kenny. I look at Ring of Honor first and foremost, and they go out of their way to promote, we're wrestling. There's no bells and whistles. There's no elaborate entrances. There's no characters. We're wrestling. We shake hands before the match, and we shake hands after the match. Okay. When I look at this, you talk about, Kenny, your parents and the marketing and the promotion and the advertising. When I look at that, immediately what you're telling me is, okay, we're just going to narrow down our audience, And we're just going to go after an audience that only enjoys that.
Okay.
The success, Kenny, of the Attitude Era was we opened up the audience to all those casual wrestling fans and casual television viewers, where there was a little something on the show for everybody. That was the whole idea, to open it up to a broader scope of people to watch the show. The more people watch the show, the more money you're going to make, the more merch you're going to sell, the more tickets you're going to sell, yada, yada, yada. It's simple math. But when you say, listen, this is all we are, and we're not going to change this, you're limiting your audience and the potential money that you can make. And Kenny, here's my second thing, Kenny, and then I'm going to let you go on this, okay? But here's my second thing, Kenny. If we're going to strip all the entertainment out of wrestling, right, then at Ring of Honor, and I don't mean to pick on Ring of Honor, but I use them as an example because they're on Destination America now, okay? But if we're going to strip all the entertainment aspects out of professional wrestling, Kenny, then why aren't those guys going out there and wrestling for real? Why aren't they going out there and having legitimate wrestling matches with a legitimate ref, with a legitimate winner and loser, if we're going to strip all the entertainment aspect out of it? You're the perfect guy to give me your insights on this, being you worked at ROH, had a great career at ROH. Now you're over at TNA, and you're entertaining just as much as you are wrestling. What's your thoughts on all that, Kenny?
Okay. I mean, that's very fair. That's very fair. So let me just start off by saying this. I found that when I was in Ring of Honor, the mentality definitely shifted from when Gabe Sapolsky, who was, in my opinion, a wrestling genius, who knows wrestling, who is one of the reasons why Ring of Honor is even mentioned today in the revered sense, because he had an idea of what it was, of what needed to be done. Ring of Honor always had a sense of, and not because TNA used the catchphrase, be an alternative or the alternative to wrestling, but what the mentality of, for me, Ring of Honor always was the difference between wrestling and entertainment. Nobody wants to, a growing number of people don't want to turn on a wrestling show and see a wrestling show open with a 10-minute promo, a 2-minute wrestling match, more backstage vignettes. Maybe we have a match that's interrupted by a run-in, and then you're talking about an hour and a half, 2 hours before you actually get a legitimate 10, 15-minute competitive wrestling match. So you can go overboard on the entertainment part. Now, you know as well as I know, Vince, the majority of what we do, a good amount of it is the aspect of storytelling outside of the ring, but it boils down to being able to tell a damn story inside of the ring.
Yep.
If you don't have two guys that can tell a story, a captivating story through motion and through the physicality, then we're pretty much just watching dudes just kill themselves for our amusement. So that was always the emphasis in Ring of Honor, was that we're not going to come out and talk you to death, but we are going to entertain you, and we are going to tell you a story, and we are going to do our brand of entertainment through a brand of physicality that you're not going to find at that time on television. You're not going to find that as far as mainstream wrestling. So that changed in Ring of Honor also because it is kind of counterproductive. And around the era where I first really started getting really involved in Ring of Honor was when Adam Pearce took over. And Adam Pearce understood that you have to have the balance of, has to have character, but this is also still Ring of Honor, and people come to see a certain thing. If you look at the guys who've been able to go from Ring of Honor to bigger and better things, those are always the guys that have had almost a perfect balance of being able to show who they are, to convey that to the audience outside of the ring on the microphone or the walk to the ring, and also be able to back it up and show what kind of phenomenal athlete they are in the ring. So the guys like Bryan, guys like, I'll use the Briscoes as an example, myself, Claudio, Tyler, these guys, Austin Aries, guys that have been able to kind of leapfrog out of Ring of Honor into a bigger spotlight, haven't just done so with a bag of 450s and a bag of shooting star presses. They've done it with the realization that I've got to make like you said, I got to create my brand, and then I have to expand it. I've got to show people that this, that there are levels to the onion, that you have complexities to your character, and that was always the challenge in Ring of Honor for me, especially like what I didn't really kind of come into my own until they put me in a tag team called the All Night Express. The All Night Express initially was, two party boys, myself and Red Titus, two party boys that like to party and Red would hand room keys out to girls on the entrance. So the whole MO was two party boys that could wrestle, but we're more about the party after, or what girl we're going to bring out to the hotel after, which is heels. It works out perfect because we're getting heat for not necessarily for being so good that we can show off. So that having to find out and expand on that was a big turning point in my career, because that's when I really got it. As far as I need to be able to have a fleshed out character and have a fleshed out way to entertain these people without, because especially if you're a good heel, then that some of the things that I do athletically are, oh wow, yeah. So if I'm in there with a baby face that doesn't have any charisma, then I run the risk of overshadowing with just the things that I do. So I had to learn how to entertain and get heat without any of that stuff, without handstand kicks and springboard blockbusters. I had to learn how to do it with my facial expressions and the ways that I'd emote that to the crowd, and that has to grow, and that's the balance of wrestling that I feel that people are looking for. I don't want to see promos. I don't want to see 100 backstage vignettes. But yeah, like you said, I also don't want to see 6 15-minute balls to the wall, Japanese style, strong style wrestling matches either. There has to be a very good mix of the entertainment and the wrestling, or else people will get bored because people are there. You have to have, like you said, something for everyone.
Kenny, I got to tell you this, in talking to you, and again, I've worked with so many guys, it's funny, bro, because when I've worked with guys, like I know in my mind, Kenny, I think the hardest role to fill in professional wrestling is the agent. I really think that's the hardest role to fill, because you can't be, a lot of agents today, bro, are really old school. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to train today's talent based on how they were trained. Yeah. And unfortunately, I don't think that works in 2015. So the key is to find somebody young enough that has roots in traditional wrestling, but also realizes, these guys are younger, these guys are working a different way. We've got to meet someplace in the middle. And Kenny, I'm always able to say, what, so-and-so would be a great agent. So-and-so would be a great agent. Kenny, I got to tell you something. Up until now, I've never really come across a wrestler that I thought, this guy would be great in creative. This guy would be great on the writing team. It was always agents because they're wrestlers and they know how to work. And, as a writer, you always tap out to them when it comes to the wrestling part. But, bro, when I talk to you, man, I think some way, shape, or form, even if it's only a little bit, you should start parlaying your way a little bit into creative, bro, because I think you'd be phenomenal.
Well, thank you, Vince. I mean, it just comes with having to know, like you said, and you kind of hit it on the head, man, you got to know the business today. And a perfect example of this, Ring of Honor had the 9th anniversary show here in February-ish. And it was on a Sunday, and I teach class on Wednesdays. So my class on Wednesday, we're getting in, and it was about 10, 15 people. And first I was like, so I saw a bunch of them at the Ring of Honor show. So how many of you guys saw the Ring of Honor show? We did. Okay, well, any questions? Yeah, I saw AJ Styles do this thing where he dropped down and did it. Wait a minute, you want to know how to do a move? Okay, next question. Well then, Matt Seidel, he escaped and he. So I was getting questions about how to do moves, and so about 3 or 4 questions in, I said, listen, 60% of you are going to break your neck on a hip toss if I'm not watching you. Okay, most of you can't take a shoulder tackle correctly. Don't worry about what AJ Styles is doing. All right, AJ Styles is AJ's freaking Styles. Matt Seidel is Matt Seidel. The guys that you see making it look effortless are doing it because they're phenomenal. They're unconscious competent in what they do. What I want to know from you guys is, what did you see psychology-wise that you didn't understand, that you never understood? So it took a long time for me to break it down to them and for them to realize, because these guys watch Ring of Honor and they watch and we're picking on Ring of Honor, but they watch New Japan and they watch Indies, PWG, and they see an endless supply of moves and moves and moves, and not always has the greatest psychology. So then after a while, you start to think that that's what wrestling is.
Yeah.
You have someone who tells you, if I catch you trying to do a hurricanrana before you can lock up correctly, I'm going to stretch you till you pee yourself.
Kenny, you know what would happen, and you'll appreciate this, bro, because take it from somebody firsthand, and you can pass this along to your students. Kenny, this is what would happen. This was always my experience, especially during the growth of the X Division. Okay, Kenny, here's what would happen. Okay, the X Division wrestlers would get together. They would lay out a match with too many high spots to count. What they would do, Kenny, is they're in the back now. They're going over their match verbatim, and they're talking about their match. Then, Kenny, when they're not together, you'll appreciate this. You see them off on their own. This goes on all day long, right? So, Kenny, what happens when they go in the ring? They're so focused on trying to memorize the moves. The first thing that goes out the window is the character.
It's an empty, and then it becomes an empty seat arena, or an empty arena match, because nobody's looking out at these people that have bought tickets.
And not only that, Kenny, here's what really happens. Everybody becomes the same. They all have the same personality. Nobody has a different personality. They all become the same. How is anybody going to get over when everybody's the same?
Well, the one guy who's different gets over.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Kenny. You've been so kind to me, bro. We've been talking for an hour and 15 minutes already, and I know I can't keep you here all day. And I gotta go down this other road. For call it my morbid curiosity.
Okay.
All right. Now, first of all, I applaud Kevin Dunn for telling you that. I think that's great. Yeah. So
if Kevin, if you're hearing this, I've never been able to. I actually never had a conversation with Kevin Dunn since then, but I've always carried an immense level of respect for Kevin Dunn for having it. Just, you don't have to. I'm some kid who didn't win tough enough. I'm about to get hammered and that crazy, but he didn't have to pull me to the side and let me know that, hey, kid, it wasn't because you weren't good enough. It was because we're going down this road. And that's my first foray into the wrestling business, as far as how the wrestling business actually works. It don't matter how good you are. If I don't have a spot for you and we can't figure out how to utilize your talents, then you're going to be future endeavored. You're not going to get the opportunity. You're not going to get that 2 minutes that you absolutely need. So he didn't have to do that. And I respect Kevin Dunn light years, because he probably talked me down off the ledge. I stopped at this point. We didn't talk about it, but I had to make a decision. Tough Enough was over in February. Spring football started in March. I'm starting to get phone calls and from coaches. Okay, Mr. MTV, you're ready to come back and play football. And I had to make the decision that I wasn't going to play football anymore, because I was so sure that I'd won Tough Enough. So it was a lot of emotions that went into that. So I've always looked at Kevin Dunn for just that. I mean, just that little.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, what Kevin Dunn. This is what I'm getting out of the story, Kenny. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what Kevin Dunn told you is, listen, bro, it doesn't matter. The reasons why you didn't win don't matter. He was basically telling you, you can do this.
Yeah.
And probably, at that point in time, Kenny, that's probably all you needed to hear, knowing, okay, guess what? Here's my new career in professional wrestling.
I was hooked at that point. I tell kids, you don't have any idea what hooked means until you start doing this, because you can't. Al Snow said this, and I always kind of elaborate on it, but people don't understand. Nobody understands this but us. Families, wives, girlfriends, bosses. Nobody gets why you would drive seven hours to make $25 to go get kicked in the face to come back to do it again. So throw that out the window. Wrestling doesn't make any sense. But once you do it and you fall in love with it, you're done. You're stuck. So if you have something in your life that you don't want to lose due to wrestling, then don't even start. Yeah. Don't even. So that's where I was with it at that point. I was completely in. I'd gotten my taste. I knew that I could do it physically, and I knew that I could do it mentally. So yeah, so I was done at that point. I was already hooked.
Okay, now Kenny, I gotta ask you this, bro. The Chippendale gimmick.
Okay.
Now I'm assuming, obviously, bro, this is a means to pay the bills. You know, it's a job. That's what it is. And obviously, if anybody's qualified, it's you. But when does that come about, Kenny? Is that during the college years? Is that when, the early years of a professional wrestler to pay the bills? When does that career happen for you, Kenny?
It happened around 2005 when I was doing all sorts of things. They say you have to do this to support your wrestling habit. So I was doing all sorts of stuff to support my wrestling habit. I was selling timeshare. I was DJing a little bit. I was right before I actually had my little girl. And a friend of mine that I was living with at the time was the singer for the tour. So now, just so I can just clear the air about the whole Chippendale situation. When he first was like, "Hey man, you want to be a Chippendale?" It's like, no, I'm not interested in, everybody's got a preconceived notion. I'm not interested in banana hammocks and that's just not my deal. I'm cool with the dudes that do it, cool, but you just won't catch Kenny on stage like that, right? So we live together and he's bugging me, man, because there's two sets. There's 10 guys that do the Vegas show and there's 10 guys that do like the world tours. So it's a lot more exclusive than I guess that anybody would really know. That if you're not in there, there's a whole lot of other Chippendales, just using the name. But as far as like the actual Chippendales, there's only 20 dudes at any given time that are quote unquote Chippendales. So and it's a legit, it's a very selective process. Like thousands of dudes a year feel some kind of way about themselves because they don't get picked. So about a month of my friend bugging me like, man, look, you really be perfect for this. We want to go. When are you going to go? You want to travel with wrestling? You want to go on tour? They were setting me up for a 2.5-month tour in Europe. So finally I was like, forget it, man, whatever. We're going to go out. I'll go see the show. If it'll make you happy, just so I can tell you no. And then I go see the show. And then I realized that there's no lap dances. There's no tips. It's not like strip clubs that I would frequent where, it's kind of like a free for all. Anything goes. It was all choreography. It was all stage. So then I was like, oh, well, this isn't anything like I thought it was at all. So then I went on tour with the Chippendales. And I said this to, for up until I really started kind of getting big in the wrestling business. But my very first show as a Chippendale was in the Berlin Arena in front of 4,000 women. So I don't know if you've ever taken your shirt off in front of 4,000 women. It makes you feel pretty special. So for the longest period of time, Vince, doing Chippendales, I was performing in front of bigger crowds than I was as a wrestler. So and that was the thing about it for me, was that it was another form of just being on the big stage. You know what I mean? Like being on the stage in front of 3,000-4,000 women. I don't have to take my pants off and shake and I don't have to collect 40 lap dances in order to make my money for the night. If I show up, I'm on stage, I got paid. It didn't matter whether it was 5 women or 500 women in the crowd, or 5,000 women. I'm making my money. So that's kind of how the tour. It was the closest I'd ever been to a rock star tour. We're traveling through Europe on a tour bus. Brother, we pull up to the venue. There's girls outside waiting. We go to our hotel room, our hotels. There's girls outside waiting. I mean, it's the closest I've ever been to Axl Rose in my entire life, you know. So,
Kenny, I got to ask you this now, okay? Because this is fascinating to me, Kenny. Give me the best pickup line thrown your way and the absolute worst pickup line thrown your way.
All right, I got the best one. This one I keep on tap here because this is just when I get a lot of questions from the boys in wrestling about like what the Chippendale guys like and what's that even like, because everybody, like I said, everybody's got a preconceived notion. So this is hilarious. So this was a girl that was there for her bachelorette party, and she was there with 5 or 6 other girls, and this was actually in Vegas. This was actually after I moved to Vegas and joined the Vegas show, and we had talked. This beautiful girl, drop dead gorgeous girl, getting married in Vegas within the next 3 or 4 days. So she'd taken me and I'd taken her, and we're talking, and she's there with the bouquet, with the veil on, the bachelorette sash, the whole deal. You know, it's a deal, right? We're talking. And so I get, because after the shows in Vegas, we have a bar that's attached to the theater, so it's a meet and greet. We call it basically shooting fish in a barrel. So we're in the bar afterward, and me and this girl have been talking probably for like 30 minutes, like exclusively. I'm supposed to go around, you know, kiss babies, shake hands, take pictures, whatever, but I'm locked in here. So she says to me, I've never ever been with a black guy before. This was a white girl. Never been with a black guy before. And I'm about to get married in 4 days. Like, well, you know, it just joke. Well, listen, we still got time, you know. You don't have to go out like that, you know. So, but she's shooting, right? Look, I'm serious. I've never, and my girls want to go out. I'm staying at the Bellagio. I think that if I tell, you know, we can make this happen where you meet me there, and, you know, we can make this happen. So we're talking. I'm like, well, aren't you said you're town with your fiance, he's having his bachelor party. You know, where's he going to be at? Well, he just goes down and plays poker. So he's going to play poker for like the next 5 or 6 hours, and, you know, nobody's going to be in our suite. So I'm saying, wait a minute, you want me to come up to your suite and do this while your husband's sitting on a poker table downstairs? Can you imagine what happens the day if he goes all in, and then I got his bride to be pinned up again. Somebody's got to die. That's not shake hands and be like, listen, I'm sorry. Somebody's got to go at that point. So needless to say, that didn't happen. I don't like to live dangerously like that, you know. But that was probably the best. She was all about like, look, I'll time him out. I'll text him. I'll find out. Oh gosh. Like, wow, and you are about to get married. Like, this is
Kenny. Let me ask you this: like, how, you know, I could tell you're a nice guy, bro. You're not an a-hole by any stretch of the imagination. Kenny, how would you let girls down easy? You know, like, how would you blow them off? I mean, I'm sure you're getting this every single night. How do you blow them off without looking like a dick?
I'm married. I have a girlfriend. Well, and a lot of it was the truth. You know, I'm a single dad, so I got to go home. I only have a babysitter for so much. But you'd be amazed at how many times, well, you know, I'll never ever meet your girlfriend. I'll never ever meet your wife. So what does that matter to me? Like, women don't care. They when they are fixated, they don't come hell or high water. Yeah. They're trying to get where they're trying to get. So, you know, that was the whole thing. Fall back on, well, yeah, you know, I'm a nice guy, and like, oh, you're very pretty, but, you know, I'm that guy, and you know, but that it always backfired. Sometimes it would backfire because then the pretty friend would be like, "Oh, you have a girlfriend?" Well, let me explain to you what you have a girlfriend, you know. So it's you know, it's dangerous water sometimes to play in.
Yeah. Kenny, let me ask you this question. Now, listen, I'm talking hypothetically, okay? I'm not talking by like somebody like me. By any stretch of the imagination. This is how hypothetical. This is the old, like, I have a friend. Okay? Kenny, I said it. I'm going to say a million times. You're a blue chipper, bro. And Kenny, you know, quite frankly, I think you're getting better with age.
I think so too.
My opinion. Kenny, if you have a guy, middle-aged, maybe graying, the the tire around the middle is starting to get a little out of hand. Okay? Now, hypothetically, I got a friend like this. Okay? Now, Kenny, you've made a life, forget career, bro. We're going all the way back to high school. You're a standout football running back, linebacker. Your entire life is health and fitness and eating right and working out. If you've got a middle-aged guy graying, starting to get that tire around the middle that he can't get rid of, what few points would you be able to give him that he'd be able to stick to and kind of get over the hump of eating right and getting into the gym, on a routine schedule, something simple where this friend of mine could start? What would you tell him, Kenny?
Well, I'd start off by just saying, like, look, what's going to work for me to motivate me isn't going to motivate you. Okay, everybody has different motivators, and everybody's got different things that turn the screws inside of them a little bit. So my question is just like, well, how bad do you want it? And you have to associate that with something that you actually want. Whether it's, hey man, I want to go, Vegas is pool season. I want to go to the pool and take my shirt off with the 20-year-old guys and walk around respectable, or it's, I've got some health issues, or I've got a picture of myself when I was 20, when I had a six-pack. So how bad do you want whatever specific thing that you want? And then you have to be realistic with yourself, and you have to also understand that what's gonna get you addicted to working out and fitness is the change that you see in your body and the changes that you feel in your body. So don't get discouraged by, man, I've been working out for 6 weeks and my stomach hasn't gone away, or are you stronger? Can you get on the treadmill for longer than you could before? Mm-hmm. Are you feeling? Can you lift heavier weights? Can you go? You have more endurance with weights? Can you lift for, instead of only 10 reps? Can you go for 15 to 20? Those are the things that you have to, if you're starting a workout regimen. That's how you have to grade yourself, because a lot of people start and they grade themselves on a Ryan Reynolds scale. And, well, I've been working out for 6 weeks and I don't have abs. And I've been working out for 16 years and there's months at a time where I don't have abs because I don't make the right choices, but it has to go back to being mental, and you have to see you have to congratulate yourself for your little achievements. I'm stronger. I can lift 20 pounds heavier than I did. Maybe it's not coming. I can see a little peak in my bicep now. I can see, a little definition in my back. Those are the things that you have to grade yourself on. You can grade yourself on a picture of a guy in Muscle and Fitness, because that guy's dedicated 6 hours a day for the last 10, 15 years to his physique. He dedicates, 7 hours a week to meal preparations. He's looking at labels. So that's not what you can start off with. Yeah, that's great to say that's my end result, but your baby steps have to be realistic.
Okay, Kenny, I want to now, we're going to wrap this up. This is the last thing we're going to talk about, because this is why you're here, and this is why I want to bring you here, and I want to make sure we put the proper attention on this. And obviously, I'm talking about TNA Wrestling, Kenny. We just moved to Wednesday nights 2 weeks ago, Wednesday nights, 9 o'clock Eastern time, and then there's a replay, I believe, at 12 o'clock at night. But we want to watch the show at 9 o'clock at night. Kenny, can I tell you something? Because, I watch a TNA. Can I tell you something? I hadn't seen it for a couple of weeks, and I saw you guys come out last week, not yesterday, the week before. It was a 6-man against the Rising, right? Kenny, can I tell you something that I didn't like?
Please.
And the reason why I'm telling you this, Kenny, is not that my opinion matters anymore, because it doesn't. I'm just kind of like interested in the story behind it, right? Kenny, you know what I didn't like? I didn't like, and I don't know how long you've been doing this, I didn't like you guys coming out wearing the masks. And okay. Can I tell you why I didn't like that, Kenny?
Sure.
Kenny, I think you and MVP, bro, when I look at you guys, like, you're huge stars. You know, you're big, legitimate stars. You're handsome. You look great. You look like $1 million. To me, like, you know, the guy over at the WWE, Rowan, who puts on the goat mask. Like, okay, I get that. When he came in, we didn't know who he was, and we got to know who he was. Oh, that's the guy that wears the sheep mask. You know, so like I could totally understand that. But you know, you guys, you know, MVP, you look like movie stars, and I was a little curious, like what do the mask gimmick? What does that mean? How did that come about? And again, let me just make this perfectly clear. Just my opinion, because some people may love it.
Sure. Well, the Beatdown Clan is very influenced by us. Myself, MVP, Joe at the time, Low Key, Homicide now. It's very much us. It's very, you know, it's a very rare thing in wrestling where you get to say, where they say, here, we're going to give you the time and we're going to give you the resources that you need. So do your thing, right? So what came about was we're very heavily Japanese influenced and very heavily influenced by hip hop and like kung fu movies. Like all of us, we're real friends. That's why it also works too. All of us, you know, we travel together, we drink together. We're friends. We have the same interests. So in the interest of putting together an entrance that is unique in professional wrestling, because everybody, you know, if three guys come out, everybody stands at the top of the ramp, gets their beauty shot. You know, they're a heel, you go into your heel tactics, your face, you go into your face tactics. So in order to create something that was so unique and something that hadn't been done, we really, you know, that was us the thing when we started the Beatdown Clan. You know, people are so shallow, you know, through the ethnic guys calling themselves a clan. That doesn't make any sense. Well, it does, because it's a Japanese, we're a war clan. You know, if you know about Japanese culture, there were war clans. There were groups of people that didn't do anything but ride up into your town and tear up your stuff. And you see it with they come with banners, you know, they riding on horses, and you saw a specific banner, you knew it was time to get out of town, or you risk what was going to happen. So, and then, you know, just how the logo came. It's an Oni mask. A Japanese Oni is basically a Japanese god for mischief and you know, it can go into destruction, but mostly for mischief and mayhem. So it all kind of came together organically. We're talking about ways that we can just make it unique and we can make it us. So, you know, to come out, the lights off, and to come out with the banners, and then the Oni masks were just kind of like the last kind of final straw. You don't see anything like that where the lights go out and three dudes are standing there, and then there's these Oni masks, and then we don't take them off until it's time for the actual beauty shot. That creates that aura of menace, I feel.
Kenny, you want to know something? You're right. You're right. But see, Kenny, here's the thing. And Vince McMahon taught me this, you know, and I always give credit for Vince for this, always, because Vince made me understand how important the nuances are in wrestling. The nuances mean everything. What you just explained to me, I totally get. I totally understand. I did not know what the name of the masks were. I did not know they were Japanese masks. But I will tell you this. This is something that should have and can still be explained in an interview or explained in a vignette. If I missed it, Kenny, like, I apologize. But like everything you just said to me, oh, okay, I totally get that now. But if you would have never told me, I would have never known.
I agree with that. And that's actually a very good it's a good talking point. That's something for, you know, for you to sit down and bring with the boys, because it is something that we're getting a lot of positive feedback from, but a lot of people may not get it, you know, and so that is something that maybe can be explained in a vignette or something where we can dig deeper into why we come out like that.
Yeah. All right, Kenny, I'm going to ask you now, bro, not to get into character, not that, but I'm really going to ask you to get into sale mode, promotional mode, and I'll tell you why, Kenny, okay? From everything I'm reading between the lines, I had a great 2-hour interview with Billy Corgan, and I kind of picked up on some things Billy said. My sixth sense. You know what I mean? I want to make this perfectly clear, Kenny. TNA comes on first run 9 o'clock Wednesday night. Okay, I think right now in this point in time, for the wrestling business, for TNA, there is a sense of urgency.
Oh, yeah.
If you're a wrestling fan, you need to watch TNA first run at 9 o'clock when it comes on. If you're a wrestling fan and you want to support wrestling and you want to support TNA, Wednesday at 9 o'clock, no DVRing, no midnight showing. We want to be there Wednesday nights at 9 o'clock. There's a sense of urgency right now. Wrestling fans around the world have to step up to the plate, show their support. Tell me why, Kenny. Tell the fans why now, if they're wrestling fans through and through, they got to show up for the dance. They got to be there Wednesday night. And not only that, they're not going to be disappointed.
Well, a lot of times, there's a bandwagon and group of people that just love the TNA haters, and whatever pleasure they get from it, and people and any aspect of life. If you put yourself on a stage, then you're going to have your own group of haters. That's just part of me being successful. But sometimes some of that criticism and some of that blind whatever it is has been justified in the past. I can, let's just keep it absolutely 100. There's been some stupid stuff that has happened, but consistently over the past year and change, if you're a wrestling fan and the things about the LOL TNA that you did not like previously, and you're watching TNA right now and you're not enjoyed, you might be brain dead. We're consistently from top to the bottom, there are guys and girls going out there and busting their tails, delivering great matches. The overabundance of in-ring promos and overabundance of stories that go on forever, that don't lead anywhere. You haven't seen any of it in the last year and a half, I would say. So if you're a wrestling fan, that because also don't forget, TNA's got one of the best rosters on the planet. You can put any two of the guys on TNA on a TNA roster, put them in a main event anywhere on the planet, and you've got your 5-star match. So those are the things, that people always talk about. Well, TNA's got the this and they've got that, but they don't do the this. Well, it's been pretty damn consistent that we've got a lot of the not everything's going to be perfect because this is wrestling, this is life, but we've got a lot of the things that people want to see going in motion week after week after week. And as far as a wrestling show that has aspects of entertainment, I mean, listen, you've got girls like Taryn Terrell and Gail Kim wrestling circles around other female wrestlers. If you want to give divas a chance, then you need to give knockouts a chance, because I don't know that I've ever seen a group of girls that can go like the group of girls that we have. Not just stand up there, look pretty, but these girls are freaking daredevils. Taryn Terrell is one of the craziest, toughest women I've ever seen in a wrestling ring. So these girls are going out there not just to be pretty, but they want to be wrestlers. They're wrestlers. They complete the program when it comes to all of the facets of the things that we offer as a television show all the way now. So if you like wrestling and you like quality wrestling from guys that can go, guys that and gone are the days of guys that are on the show because of what they did 5, 8, 10 years ago and coasting by on their laurels. The dudes that are making TNA what it is now are guys that are making their names week after week, and it's just compelling television. It's good wrestling. It's compelling television. So if you like wrestling, then why aren't you watching? And that's all there is to it. If it's a matter of, well, I don't like this, I don't like that, you're not going to like I can guarantee you, if you watch WrestleMania, you're not going to like every match. You might be thoroughly and enjoy the entire show, but you're not going to like every match, every segment. But as long as the general flow is entertaining and it's not insulting to anybody's intelligence, which I believe that we're in that perfect mix right now, then there's no reason not to watch TNA.
Yeah. Kenny, two things, and I say this every week. And Kenny, I'm going to be honest with you. Like, Kenny, this is just me. I can't watch wrestling every week and every show because at this point in my life, I'm wrestled out. That's just me. But Kenny, I've always said this. I think, I don't think there's a comparison between the TNA show and WWE right now. I really don't. And I'll tell you the main reason why, and there's a secondary reason that I'm starting to see, that I'm really starting to dig, and I think Billy Corgan's going to have a lot to do with it. First of all, the consistency of TNA. Guys like EC3, guys like Spud, guys like you, you're over because of the consistency of putting you out there every week with something to do and something to say. Whereas the WWE, it's a yo-yo. We're going to go with Bray Wyatt this month. Next month, we're not going to see Bray. We're going to go with Ambrose. Then we're not going to go see Ambrose. We're going to see. You don't get people over that way. You get people over by them being consistent and being there every week. That's how we got over the Beatdown Clan. That's how we've gotten EC3 over huge. And little Spud, we've gotten over huge that way. Number two, my opinion, but it's changing, and this is what I'm excited about. I think TNA for a while there was getting in a habit of being too safe. In other words, like if I missed the show, I really didn't miss anything. It was very wrestling. However, with the addition of Billy, now I'm starting to see more and more chances being taken because he's not your typical wrestling writer that's been in the wrestling business for 25 years. He's an artist. He's a musician. He's a wrestling fan, just like I was. So he's looking at it from a different perspective. I'm seeing chances now that I really, really like. So the combination of the consistency and not being afraid to take chances. And you used the word early on in this interview, Kenny, be different. Be different. That's what I've been excited about, with TNA the last few weeks.
It's exactly what you said. Like it's a sense of urgency now. The wrestling business has completely changed hell in the last 3 or 4 months, or the last year, where there's so many places that guys can go to work, and there's so many new avenues of wrestling's being pushed in this way, Lucha Underground, Ring of Honor, all these different things, what Global Force Wrestling. So now there's the spectrum of wrestling is being broadened. So I agree with the statement's sense of urgency. I'm like most, where I've talked to Billy before. I knew, Billy ran Resistance Pro Wrestling, and I know that he wasn't just a mark with a guitar that came, and with some name value. But I wasn't prepared for just how Billy is very clear on this, and he knows the deal, but he wants to add his experiences as a platinum recording artist. He wants to add his experiences as being Billy Corgan as a wrestling fan and as a guy who owned a wrestling company, and just add to it. He's not there to reinvent the wheel, but I really see the way that Billy just sits back and he absorbs everything, and the criticisms and the comments that he gives is always just from a place of, how about this? Have you thought about this? Just looking at things and sometimes that's the best way to gain perspective. If I'm thinking about something and I want to go about it this way, but I never looked over this way to see that I can get to the same direction and the same destination just by maybe veering. And I kind of feel like that's one of the great things that Billy brings, is a completely non-wrestling perspective, but a successful entertainment one.
Yep. And if anybody knows entertainment, I mean, it's Billy Corgan. And the thing I love about Billy being there is there are no ulterior motives. Right. And you get ulterior motives when there's a lot of people in the wrestling business that have all been there for a very long time and it's competitive. Then you get your ulterior motives. He has none. He's very secure and confident in his own skin, and rightfully so. The man is an absolute artist.
Yeah, you got him doing that in the middle of scheduling Pumpkins tours.
Exactly.
Like the Pumpkins are dead, or he's not making. He's not washed up in any respect. He's about to go on a city tour with Smashing Pumpkins. So that alone would probably be more than most people could handle. But then in order to want to lend his just brain power to the TNA thing, I think we're very fortunate to have him.
Bro, my two oldest boys, Kenny, are like 28 and 25, and they're driving me absolutely nuts because Billy's coming over here to Red Rocks in Colorado. So right. If that doesn't tell you how relevant the man is, a 25-year-old driving me nuts. I mean that's everything that you need to know.
Absolutely.
But Kenny, I love this conversation. Listen, if this is even possible, I'm a bigger fan of yours now than I was before we even sat down to talk. Kenny, how about that?
Likewise, Vince. Absolutely likewise.
And Kenny, I hope you will continue to be a friend on the show. I'd love to bring you back on. I want to say it again, everybody. Sense of urgency. Wednesday nights, 9 o'clock, Impact. No DVR, no 12 o'clock. Be there at 9 o'clock. We have Kenny's word. Billy gave me his word. You got my word. They're not going to let us down. They're not going to disappoint. Kenny, thanks for joining us today. I'm going to sign off, but I just want you to hang out because I want to give you a personal goodbye. But thank you very much, Kenny.
So much for having me, Vince. I'll come back and do it anytime.
Okay, well, there you have it, everybody. Impact Wrestling, 9 o'clock, Wednesday nights. Kenny King, the Beatdown Clan. Be there, and I'll catch you all on the rebound. Thanks for joining us.
It's right about time again to swerve again, confuse the general fans again. Add another swerve and then put it on a pole again. Put it on a pole again. Put it on the pole again. And our square to quad.